Hey everyone, very good morning and welcome to this workshop on the art of loose leash walking. Um, a very practical subject, I should say, because it may seem impossible to actually teach this through an online session or through so much of theory, right? So I've tried to kind of cover most aspects of it and explain it to the best of my ability. But that being said, like any other skill in dog training, along with the knowledge, you require a lot of practice and experience, right? So there's a lot of trial and error that needs to be done. So as we head into this session, remember that you gather this knowledge and try to implement it and keep working on it going ahead, because there is no one technique that works for every single dog out there, because each dog is different. They have an individual personality and we have to work with the personality and not against it, right? So it's all about trial and error, right? So let's start off with the session. But before we start, if we can just have you guys introduce yourself. It's a small group, so we know each other, and just a little bit about yourself, your dog, why you're here for this workshop, and if there are any specific questions that you'd like to ask going ahead. I know there'll be a lot more as we delve in, but anything specific that you came here to know about. You want to go first? Harshita, you want to go first?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Harshita here. I stay in Mantri Serenity, and I love animals a lot. And since childhood, I had a pet. I mean, I was not the pet parent; my parents were. So then, after over a period of time, then priority changed. But now, when I saw an abandoned dog, I thought I should home him, but unfortunately he was traumatized. So when I used to take him for a walk, it was a very big nightmare because he used to growl and bark on all the bikers passing by, any walkers passing by. Now he is in daycare for a period, and now I have another rescue dog, Millie, and she is a 6 month female pup. But with her, my experience is totally different because her nature is very docile. So it's very easy to give her a walk. And my mission of joining this uh, session is to correct my behavior, to correct my mistakes, and also to learn the art, because there could be some mistakes which I would have done. So I can also correct my mistakes and improve on my bringing up these little voiceless kids. So that's what it is.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Harshita. And just again, a point to add that, I think I've spoken to Harshita earlier. One of those pet parents who's giving 200% for her dog. Really, she stepped out of her way so much to be able to give the best for her dogs. And I'm sure, she's going to make good progress with both her dogs. All right. So, yeah. Anuj, can you introduce yourself? Can you guys tell us a little bit about yourself? You're joining us all the way from the US, so thank you. I think it's quite late
Yes.
for you guys.
It's almost 10:30. We are from Washington, Seattle. We just like Karthik is our trainer for our like a puppy we just adopted. He's like almost 8.5 weeks now. So yeah, he's breath of fresh air, but at the same time, like very, very active. So yeah, Karthik has been helping us, like to help, like to how to like bond with him and like train him. So yeah, we just joined this call to learn as much as we can the information. And just want to say like Karthik is a great like trainer in general. Like he's been helping like not just with the dog, but also like us with anxiety around the dog. So yeah, we are here to just learn more and just do the right thing for our the pup here. And we have a bunny doodle named Blue, very small. So yeah, super cute.
Hey, thank you so much, guys. And yeah, I mean, they've joined us all the way from the US. And I actually told them to join this session because, a lot of times when we get a little puppy home, you don't know what you're in store for, right? There are so many elements in the puppy's life, whether it's taking the puppy out, socialization, training, walking them on a leash, socializing them with other dogs, maybe vet visits, and so many different things. And very often the approach is a reactive approach, which means after the incident happens or once the dog starts pulling us on the leash, that's when we look to address it, right? It's really important that whether you're a puppy parent or someone who's got an older dog, who's just adopted a dog, if you have the right kind of knowledge and guidance, you can prevent 80% of the problems from even starting, right? So the whole idea about doing these sessions is to create that awareness, right? You may not have got a dog yet, or your dog may not have started leash pulling yet, but here we've got everything to prevent that from ever happening, and all the techniques and tools which are essential for the dog to understand. So this isn't just us wanting something from the dog. The dog also needs to understand that, hey, there's no conflict between me and my human, and I can just kind of ease into whatever it is they want me to do. Yeah, so let's get started then with the session. Again, as I said, please feel free to step in at any time if you have any questions. And of course, the whole session is going to be recorded, so you will have access to it. It will be available freely online. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, all right. So just gonna start off with, with a couple of pictures. I know, with Blue, first time puppy parent, but you may have seen other dogs in the area. And Harshita, I don't know, either you may have experienced this, or you may have seen. But do you see any of these? I mean, what can you make out of these pictures? Go ahead, you can unmute yourself and say.
The the black and the white adult dog
Uh huh.
is actually hyperactive, or
Yeah.
maybe he wants to sniff around a
Good
lot.
observation. Nice. Okay.
And the dog, which is the below image,
Yeah.
he does not want to walk by leash.
Yeah. Good. Fantastic.
And the first image is a very comfortable, the happy win-win scenario.
Fantastic. Nice. Nice. Anything you guys want to add to it?
Yeah, the leash biting
Yeah.
on the lower right. Our like puppy, we
Puppy is
started
doing
just
it.
walking him.
Yeah.
He started doing it. I
Yeah.
think we tried distraction, and luckily so far it's been working.
Good.
So,
Good. Touch wood. Touch wood.
yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
I think, and the upper one is more curious and wants to explore. And I think the pink leash one is more calm and composed, is very comfortable with his companion, his human. So, yeah.
All right. Bang on. Observations are on point. So yes, the reason I'm showing you these pictures is we have a very popular saying in dog training that the dog will do only what they are taught to do or allowed to do, right? So you can just think about these three dogs and why they would be doing these behaviors. So either they've been allowed to do it or they've been taught to do it. A lot of times we teach our dogs to do things without our knowledge, right? So when our dogs start to bite the leash, it could be very much that the dog doesn't know how to be on leash, right? Of course, it's a new contraption for a puppy, or it could be that the dog wants to go somewhere else and we're trying really hard to get them to go in another direction. So while we can interpret the meanings, it comes down to the fact that when we try really hard to resist the dog, they will do the behavior more, just like any teenager or child that's throwing a tantrum, right? So for us, we need to understand that the way we work with dogs is an approach of no conflict. This is really important before we go ahead. If we have to talk about dog training, then one of the first words that would come to our minds is no conflict, right? You want to be in a state of no conflict with your dog. That means what you want is what the dog wants, and what the dog wants is what you want. This is a state of perfect sync that we say, right? It's the epitome of dog training. A dog training isn't about having your dog learn hundreds of commands or having them be super well trained, right? When we look at pet dog training, we want to get into this state of no conflict with our dog, right? So it's a balance point. So on one side, we want to tell the dog, hey, buddy, it'll be really good if you can do this for me because I feel comfortable. And the dog's going to be telling you the same thing. Hey, human, it'll be really good if you can do this for me, because then we can meet midway, right? And that midpoint is a beautiful ride, right? So it allows you to give your dog so many freedoms and pleasures in life which otherwise may be denied, because of some kind of a conflict, right? So that's what these pictures are about. Now, when we talk about a walk, right, we've got some funny clips over there, but the walks are a very important part for a dog, right? Earlier, we used to talk about the walk as, just something that the dog needs to go out to relieve, to finish their business, right? And later on, people start to say that different dogs need a lot of physical exercise, so the walk was just a means to provide for that physical exercise. As we went ahead, we started to also realize that the walk isn't just about relieving themselves and physical exercise, it's also about a lot of mental stimulation. Which means when the dog steps out for a walk, the brain is getting stimulated so much. They're exploring so many different smells, they're seeing so many different things. So it's an experience, right? So when dogs are locked up inside the house and they don't have these experiences, a part of the brain doesn't even develop, right? Which is why when the puppies are really young, we say that they go through a socialization period between the 6 to 12 week um, age, right? And at that point, it's important to expose your puppy to so many things, and the outdoors is a very vital part of that, right? And of course, if we lived in a free estate or a countryside home, you may just be able to leave your dog outside, right? But a lot of us live in urban settings, so the leash becomes a very integral part of being able to take your dog outside, right? So the leash is a link between you and your dog. It is a transfer of energy. It is something that can communicate your state of mind to the dog without you having to say anything, just with mere sensation. And it's a very important part of building that connection and trust, right? So we don't have to look at the leash as something that restrains the dog and contains the dog or control the dog, as they used to say earlier. It's actually a very beautiful tool for communication if used correctly, right? So the leash uh, is really important. Now, just an interesting story, out of context here, but we have in our custom, we have this thing called an Ayudha Puja, right? You have a festival where you pray to the god, and you, with all the tools that you use on a daily basis, sometimes it's the books that you read, or maybe it's just maybe your mobile phone and things that you use on a daily basis as a profession. So for us, the leash is actually a tool that we really um, give a lot of value to. So we don't look at it as something to contain the dog, it is a mode of communication, right? So the leash is to be used correctly, it's to be used um, with that kind of how do I put it, um, a lot of care, right? It's not to be abused as a tool. That's one of the mistakes that we see very often, because when people get a leash, it's meant for rough use, right? I have the leashes that I used with my first dog till date, intact, in good condition, right? So usually we say, just by looking at the condition of the leash, you can say a lot about how it's been used, right? So that's something to keep in mind. So the leash is really important. um, and when we talk about leash walking in general, there are three aspects that we have to get into our head. It's a combination of three. Number one, we have to understand the tools, right? The leash, the collar, the harness, the halty, whatever it is we're using. Number two is the technique, which is the most important theoretical part. We've got a bunch of techniques. We need to understand technique and learn it in experience as well. And third is mindset. As I said, the leash is also an energy connect between you and your dog, right? So what you feel is what you're going to give out, right? And this may be hard to explain, but your calm demeanor can totally change the way your dog on leash is behaving, right? So that also comes with a little bit of practice and experience, because when you have enough knowledge and you have enough experience, you will feel more confident, and then you give better vibes when you're on leash. um, Many times you see that when the dog comes for training, and then the pet parent is holding the dog on leash, and then the dog's jumping and biting the leash. Sometimes you just have another person to hold the leash, and then in seconds it changes, and you'd wonder what's going on, right? You'll see this very often, right? So sometimes just the mere energy of the person holding the leash can create a different effect on the dog. Yeah, so that's about the leash. And of course, we don't want to be flying with our dogs like that in the picture there. So that's why we have this workshop. Okay, cool. All right, so let's go to the equipment. All right, can you guys tell me what you see here? You know what these are?
Yeah, the black one is the retractable, which
Yes,
stop and let the
yes,
dog be freely exploring the
yes.
outdoor.
Fantastic.
And for the middle one looks like an indoor one, which you
Yes,
make them familiar with, and the
yes.
third is like a normal one, like
Fantastic. Awesome. 100%. All right. So, yes, the one you see to the far left is a standard rope leash. We say it's a round leash, right? So, it's round, slightly a little more heavier than what you see in between, right? So, this is probably used when you want a little bit of comfort, you're going for a walk, you're taking your dog outside somewhere, but you don't want to you want to keep them close to you, but at the same time you want a leash that looks good basically. So on the left you have more of the cosmetic leashes, which are great, which are also useful, and when you want to take your dog out eventually. What you see in between is a flat leash. Essentially it's the same as what you see on the left, but it's flat, right? It's not round. The flat leashes tend to be a lot lighter than the round leashes, right? And you get varying lengths in all of these, by the way. The flat leash is a very essential part of training. Why? Because when we start training our dog with the leash, we want the leash to be as light as possible. I remember this one gentleman that I had to work with. He had a big dog, he had a Rottweiler, and he got a proportionate sized leash, right? Quite a heavy duty, big, bulky leash, and that leash was so heavy, right? And I asked him, why do you need such a big leash? He said, it's a big dog. If you're using the size of the leash to manage your dog, then the first step of leash training has gone wrong, right? So we'll come to this. Even with the simplest and the thinnest of leashes, a dog should be able to understand the meaning of the leash. That's how we introduce leash work to our dogs, right? And that's the correct introduction. The leash should not be an enemy to the dog that you use to tug on your dog and hold them back, right? So the middle leash is most popularly used for a lot of regular training, right? Not just when you're walking the dog, but even when you are training the dog, whether you're trying to teach them some basic obedience or some simple exercises, we use the leash as a means to guide the dog. Third one is a retractable leash. Another alternative for this would be your long leash. You get leashes of about 20 feet, 25 feet, 30 feet. The whole purpose of these leashes is to be able to give your dog freedom. Unfortunately, right now, we restrict our dogs quite a lot. If you notice, when you take our dog for a walk, you can't do this, you can't go here, you can't go there. This creates a lot of pent up frustration in dogs, right? And as they grow older, if the leash has been used wrong or some harsh corrections have been given, they can have a negative association with the walk altogether. They can develop things like reactivity, they can develop total stubbornness to move, or they can just develop a distaste for the walk in general. So when we use a leash like a retractable leash or a long line, it's a very useful tool in being able to give your dog that much needed freedom without constantly feeling that pressure on their neck. And at the same time, with a retractable, you always have a button which you can press at any point to stop the the leash from going any further, and this will give you controlled access to the freedom, right? So very useful tool when you're raising your puppy, right? Because when you get a little puppy and they've never been used to a leash before, when you start restricting them with a leash, they're going to get so annoyed. They're going to want to bite it, chew it, so much more. But when you start with a retractable, you're going to find that it's a lot lesser, because at least now the puppy can move around and you can use the tool very nicely to encourage the puppy to come to you. One more point while we're still at this slide. Many puppies don't want to come close to the pet parent and are always pulling away because they've never been given the freedom, right? What they don't have, they desire so much, so they're constantly tugging at the end of the leash. But surprisingly, when you give a dog freedom, controlled freedom, of course. You don't just go leave your dog. You'll see that their desire to come to you starts developing naturally. And that's really one of the main purposes of the retractable leash. We want the dog to enjoy being next to you, and we want them to develop this habit voluntarily. They should do it out of their own will, not because you held them really tight on a short leash, which is, by the way, how they used to do it in olden days. Just hold the dog really tight on a short leash and walk. But of course, we have much more cleverer dog training techniques today. So these are your types of leashes. Have you guys seen any other leashes apart from these? Harshita?
No, only harness.
Okay. So that we'll come to next. Those are what's on the dog. Leashes, apart from this, maybe you guys may have seen a chain, right? A metal chain, or you may have seen something called a tie out cable. These are actually meant to tie the dog, right? In olden times, because the dog would bite the leash and then rip the leash apart. But we don't really have a necessity for that today because of this the lifestyle that's changed. And we can use it for certain training exercises where a tether is needed. A tether is basically the tying up exercise is needed, but in general we don't use that. Yeah, but I've not put that over here. All right. Okay. And there. Oh man, I'm going fast. Yeah. Okay. Here we've got some other equipment. Any idea? Can you guys tell me what you see, or if you know any of these?
Choke chain.
Yeah, the
Huh. So which one's the choke chain?
That metal, the rightmost corner.
Bottom right.
Bottom
Fantastic.
right.
Okay. Others?
Just the collar stuff.
Martingale corner.
Fantastic. Which
Oh,
which one? Fantastic. Which is the martingale?
The one left corner.
Huh. So here, the one on the top left, which is this one. This is a flat buckle collar, which is the standard collar that you put on your dog. Very often you'll put a name tag to it. Many people walk their dog on this as well. No harm as long as they've introduced it correctly. Number two, this one is your martingale collar. The martingale collar is a very, very, very effective training tool, and it's very soft on the dog's neck. As you can see, it's similar to your flat buckle collar, but you can see there is an additional section over here, right? This will auto adjust to the dog's neck size. When you pull your leash on a flat buckle collar, the pressure is only from one side and they feel the pressure the most in the opposite side. So what does it do when the dog pulls? They start to have this choke feeling, right? Because right at this point they get the pressure when they pull forward. With a martingale collar, the pressure is all rounded, so when you pull, the whole collar closes in, right? Which makes it a lot easier to use and actually much better on the neck, because rather than distributing pressure in one point, it's evenly distributed and it's kind of soft, as you can see. Another advantage of the martingale collar, many dogs learn to escape from the collar. We go to the pet store, we get a collar, the collar is either too loose or too tight, so we put it somewhere in between. And when the dog doesn't want to go somewhere and you're pulling a little bit, they start reversing, and then they can just pull their collar out like that. With a martingale collar, the dog can't pull it out, right? The martingale collar we don't usually leave on the dog's neck. We only put it when they're going for a walk. So you don't even have to clip it. This one doesn't even have a clip. You just have to put it like a mala around your dog's neck, and you clip it on to this additional segment right here. This is where you put the hook of the leash, and when you pull on the leash or ever there is pressure, the whole collar closes in, right? So it prevents the dog from being able to slip out. Safe tool, totally humane tool, and one of the easiest ways when you're training a dog. All right. Anyone know this? Ever heard it? Ever seen it?
Hi Karthik, are you using any pointer?
Actually, I am just using my
Because
cursor.
I'm not able to follow
Ah,
for which image you're saying.
my bad, my bad. Let me just give me a second. I think I should. Mm, okay, I'm not too much of a techie, so I don't know if there's a pointer here, but
So no problem. You can tell with the color. So
fantastic.
one you spoke about was the
Pink.
pink color martingale collar, right?
Exactly, exactly. So what I
Okay.
spoke about now is the pink one, the martingale. The blue is your standard flat buckle collar. On the bottom left, you see this thing with the small spikes. This is
Yes,
called,
yes.
this is for your education, called a prong collar.
Oh,
Not something we'd ever want to use, right? At least in my style of training, I never use it. But it's something you need to know, and they use it for dogs to deliver strong corrections. But here's my ideology. I've worked with some very difficult cases, and if anything, this is a tool that can be abused more than used, right? Because if you've got someone who doesn't know how to use it, you're going to end up causing more trauma to the dog. And even in the event there is someone who needs to use it, there are much better techniques and ways, right? So I don't see why. But of course, I will not speak for everyone. I'm not going to make this a debate. You do have a lot of people who may use it and who may find it functional, who may actually have helped dogs using it. So not going to comment on that, but letting you guys know. On the bottom right, what you see is called a choke chain, as Harshita correctly mentioned. Again, a similar tool. It's made of metal, very commonly used in olden style training, right? In modern dog training techniques, we don't rely so much on these, but it was used a lot more. And basically, the purpose is to deliver a very crisp correction. So when the dog's making a mistake, you're able to correct them. So when you tug on that, it closes in. It's called a check chain, it's called a choke chain, different names. But yeah, we don't need to use it, by the way, for leash walking. The reason I've put that there is if we're using those to teach a dog leash walking, you've got something miserably wrong. The only time I've seen trainers have to resort to such extreme tools is when they're rehabilitating a very extreme case. But I personally have never found the need to do that, right? So that's your choke chain. And clearly, I've tried to put some pictures there. You can see by the dog's expression what they think of these tools. Yeah, so just the cartoons should tell you what they think of those two down there. And of course, a dog would want the ones on top. All right, here you've got what you mentioned earlier. We've got the harnesses. Again, a great tool, a good invention. But number one, the harness was never created for the dog to walk. That's something to keep in mind. The harness was originally created as something for dogs where they are allowed to pull. So for sled dogs and for dogs that are in detection tracking work where they have to use their nose to find a smell, because the harness allows the dog to fully put their nose on the ground and go totally at it, right? But that being said, today we have a lot of dogs on a harness and walking beautifully on a harness. So no harm in using a harness for leash walking, but you need to introduce it correctly and make sure you do the first steps right. Within the harness, you get two types. You get something called a regular, actually, you get three types. You have something called a H harness, you have something called a Y harness, and you have something called a front clip harness, right? H because it looks like a H, Y because it looks like a Y, and a front clip harness because it clips up in front. The other two harnesses clip on top, right? The out of these three, the top harness is the regular one, but the front clip harness is very useful in certain dogs to help with leash pulling, right? So if we've got time at the end, I'll probably explain a little bit about the front clip harness as well as another special tool called the Halty.
which one is the front clip harness?
So I don't have an exact image here. If you see the one on the bottom right, yeah,
Okay, black
that,
color.
but that's not a front clip harness. Actually, the dog's leash has been clipped onto a choke chain, but the point of contact will be exactly there, right? So the harness will have a hook right up in front where the leash clips onto. Very useful tool in teaching a dog not to pull, but it needs to be used correctly. Many people just buy it out of an advertisement on the internet saying stop pulling instantly, just get this harness. Doesn't work, right? So you need to introduce it correctly. So that is with harnesses. Useful tool again, because when you want to take your dog for a trek or you want to teach your dog some sniffing activities, or you want to give something like that where your dog can freely sniff decompression walks and things like that, then the harness is your go-to tool. Yeah. all the huskies and all that you see in cold countries when they're pulling carts, they use the harness. Yeah, and
Is it? Is
yes,
there like a need, or it's better to have a harness than to have a collar? Like, what's the pro and con?
yeah, that's a good question. Advantage of the harness absolutely is the fact that it doesn't put pressure on the neck, right? So there's no pressure on the thyroid, but at the same time, the harness, certain kinds of harnesses put pressure on the armpit area when you pull, right? That armpit area is where the dogs have their lymph nodes, right? So which is equally an important part. So ideally you don't want pressure anywhere. So what it really comes down to is using the tool correctly more than what tool it is. But yes, a lot of people like a harness to take their dog out because it looks nice. You get nice customizable harnesses. But the idea is, if you haven't taught your dog this concept of leash pressure, we call it, which means to understand pressure on the leash, doesn't matter what tool you use, everything will seem, very upstream, right? So but the harness, there's no plus and minus. In how I personally use it is, if I go to busy places, lot of people, I prefer a martingale collar and a leash, because that allows me to have my dog a little closer, navigate them a little more precisely, right? Busy places where my dog needs to navigate crowds, like I go for a lot of these sessions at schools and all these special education centers. I go with a harness, sorry, a collar most probably. Harness if I want to give my dog a little more free roam, right? So if I'm going for a trek, or I'm just going for a long walk, a leisured walk where I'm not going to be stopping and chatting with people unnecessarily, that's a good time where I would use a harness. Or when I'm training my dog to do some special tasks, where I want my dog to be able to use their nose when I'm teaching them some detection or tracking or things like that. Yeah, so that's your collar and harness pros and cons, but up to you. It's all personal preference, as long as you've taught your dog the meaning of leash pressure, right? So we will come to that. So we've got the tools right now, all right? That's the first bit. The next, we're going to actually come to the mindset before we go to the techniques. Mindset as well as technique, I would say. So there are 3 whys behind why we do loose leash training, right? Number 1, positive reinforcement, because when we do this kind of training, we want the dog to enjoy walking on a loose leash with us. Positive reinforcement is about encouraging the small steps and teaching your dog that when they do the right things, they get good rewards. So it's a very fun way to train your dog. Dog training will stop becoming a hassle when you start using positive reinforcement. It can become very pleasurable for you and the dog, right? If you have positive reinforcement training, you can be more consistent with your training. So the second thing about any training, and here specifically loose leash walking, is consistency. Dog never learns in one day. Whatever you see online where the dog magically transforms in a day are only clips made for entertainment. The work and the effort that goes into it is a long time. So we need to be able to continue with the techniques and the mindset consistently for a while to be able to reap the benefit. And the third concept to remember is rewarding the loose leash. We call this loose leash walking, not obediently walking or heel walking, which is something else you may hear. It's called loose leash walking because that leash is meant to be loose. You can see in the 3 photos the leash is loose. It's dangling. It's got some slack in it. When you walk your dog, you want the leash to have slack. If there is tension on your leash, it means you take few steps back and teach your dog again this whole concept of leash pressure. The leash needs to be relaxed. With a retractable leash, you will not see the slack, right? Because of course it keeps reeling in and out. So you don't have to consider it there. But for any regular leash, you need a slack. Whether you're standing in one place with your dog, whether you're training your dog or you're walking with your dog, the slack needs to be ever present. And that's really what our goal is. Okay. And then here. Okay. First step. Step number 1, when you start teaching your dog to walk nicely on the leash, is a proper introduction of the collar and leash. How do we do that? Any thoughts on this, guys?
When Millie was 4 months old,
Mm-hmm.
so I just wanted to start with that leash walking. So it was definitely not easy because she was going here and there.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had to shorten the leash,
Mm-hmm.
but it took a while for me to make her walk parallel with me.
Yes, yes.
So now she is like a good 6 7 month old dog. So now when I take her on a leash walk, now it is like she walks parallel with me. Of course, sometimes she tries to lead me,
Yeah.
but then I stop.
Fantastic.
Then
Good.
I make her. I now I make sure that I lead her and she does not lead me.
Nice. Good, good. All right, so good. I mean, it's a good training philosophy and it's working. So that's what's important. But generally, for anyone who gets a puppy or is just starting off with the leash, the first step we do is proper introduction of the collar and leash. And how do you do this? First of all, if you have a young puppy like Blue, we tell them to put the collar on even before you bring the puppy from the breeders or the shelter or wherever. So they are already used to the new collar, right? And the feel of it. And we let the dog spend a little bit more time with the collar so they just get used to the feel. How do we introduce the leash? We don't put it on and take them for a walk. We put it on and either let them drag it, or if it's a retractable leash, we just give the dog freedom. So the dog gets the feeling of gentle pressure on the neck but doesn't get alarmed by it. If we start putting pressure on the leash first, most dogs will see it as the bad guy, right? And they will want to go into a shutdown. No, no, they're stopping me from this, you're stopping me from this, right? And they get into a frustrated state. The other thing when you're introducing a collar and leash, you can't let the dog's attention be on the collar and leash, right? It's very difficult for a dog to be okay with this when they're focusing on it and looking at this contraption coming out of their neck. First instinct is to bite the leash and get really cranky. So for some people this gets solved automatically because they put the leash, take the dog out, put the leash, take the dog out after a while. But one of the things we do within the house, even very early in a puppy's life if possible, is we put the leash on, we let it be, and then we start giving the dog treats, we start playing with them. Because what the dog's going to do now is, I know I have this thing here, but I've got so many fun things I'm doing with these people. They're giving me treats, they're doing training with me, I'm sniffing things out, I got a Kong. So it becomes kind of irrelevant, right? And then we start holding it as well and moving around and doing the same training activities. If we do this for a young puppy, within a week the puppy is going to think, I don't care about this contraption. This is desensitization to the leash. The puppy gets desensitized to this leash on them. This is the very first step. Doesn't matter if it's a puppy or an older dog. First, let them just get used to the feel of a free collar and leash without any pressure on it, right? So that's number one. Step two, we add the pressure. We make them understand the concept of leash pressure. How do we do that? Now the puppy is already learned to hang out with you and have a good time with you. We have to teach the puppy that when we put pressure on the leash, what do you want the puppy to do? Guys, what do you think? What do you want the puppy to do when you put pressure on the leash?
Stop doing what he's doing.
Fantastic. Stop. What else do we use the leash for?
Pull him back.
Fantastic. Directing, right?
So when you say put pressure on the leash means what? How?
I,
What
I'll,
does it
I'll,
mean?
I'll explain to you, right? So mainly remember now the leash is used for two purposes: restriction and direction. You want to use the leash to stop the puppy in case they're going somewhere, slow them down, or you want to use the leash to direct them. To be able to make them walk next to you, we don't use that. That the puppy should start doing automatically. You just use it for two things: restrict and direct. So when I say leash pressure, what I'm saying is, now I have the collar on me and then there's a leash here. Now I start walking in front, I start feeling pressure, little bit of pressure on my neck. What do I do now? I'll say, oh God, I'm feeling pressure, and I try to pull harder. I want to break free from this pressure. First instinct for anyone, right? But slowly, if I learn that, okay, if I try to break free, it's not happening. But when I'm calm, this person only takes me to wherever I want to go. So then I learn that, okay, when I feel pressure on my neck, I should not go against it, I should go with it. This is the meaning of leash pressure, right? So when we walk our dogs, inevitably there are times when we put less little pressure. We want the dog to go with the pressure, not against it. That's the fundamental concept of leash pressure, right? So when you walk your dog, you say, chalo, let's go this way. You want the dog to come with you, not say, nahi, I want to go this way. Or you say, stop, and you put a little pressure on the leash. You want the dog to stop. You don't want them to pull harder and, you know, feel that choking sensation. So that is really what leash pressure is. So how we teach it is we start indoors. Number one. All right. After you introduce, make sure you first introduce them to a collar and a free leash where you're not putting any pressure. Then after you've done that for a good 1 week, the next step is you actually put a little bit of pressure, and when the dog comes with the pressure, you give them something they like. You give them a treat, or you play a game with them. So the puppy already starts to realize each time I feel a gentle pressure on my leash, I'll go with it, not against it. For this purpose, we very often we use a retractable leash or a long leash, because now the puppy is running free. I'm just going to put a little pressure on the leash and tug gently, and I'm going to say puppy or dog's name and come here, and show something they like. They're going to come running towards me, get the treat, and I'm going to tell them, okay, go explore again. They again go. So each time the puppy feels tension on their leash, they learn something called a check-in. They learn to check in with you. They're like, oh, you called me? That's what. So the leash sensation is also like a dog's name. So each time they feel a gentle sensation, they're going to look at you and say, hey, you said something? And that becomes a beautiful communication tool. When you walk your dog, you can literally hold the leash in one finger without any pressure. And when you put pressure, the dog will say, oh, you said something? Got it. So that's the beauty of this if you've trained it very well from a young age. So that's really leash pressure that we have to teach. We start indoors and then we build it outdoors. Third thing to teach our dog is something called tether training. I told you earlier that sometimes people get these chains to tie the dog, in olden days, or they get these special sturdy leashes. We don't have to tie our dog up ever, but the skill of tying up teaches our dog a very good skill. You know what it teaches? It teaches dog they can't go any further when they're tied. So they feel the pressure on the neck, they pull, they can't, and then they stop. When they are calm for a few seconds, we go and give them a treat, or we go and say, good boy. Again, the dog pulls, but when they stop, they get something. So they realize they get door delivery of reward when they don't pull on the leash, right? So this is how, again, it's another way of teaching leash pressure, but we teach the dog that in tether training, we purposely will tie the dog up somewhere. We sit at a few feet distance from them. We make sure they're tired beforehand, wait for them to throw the tantrum, say, no, I want to come towards you, pull. And then when they stop for a few seconds, you gently walk towards them and said, wow, I love your calmness. And you give them a few rewards, give them a gentle scratch under the ear. You sit with them for a few seconds and then come back away. Again, let them pull. When they stop, go back to them. Within a few days, your dog will proactively give you the calm behavior, which means they'll say, see, I'm being a good boy. I'm all calm here. Where's my reward? And that makes it so beautiful. Now the dog's offering you behavior to be calm on leash, technically. Later on, you can even have one person hold the leash. One of you can walk away from your dog and wait for them to calm down and then come back. This also builds the foundation of a good stay, where you teach your dog patience to wait. Alright, so tether training is very useful. We also do very many variations when we're teaching tether training. When we take the dog out, we'll purposely put a piece of treat which is out of their reach, and we don't let them get it. Dog tries, and then when they stop, we take a piece of treat from our pocket and give them and say, good job. So dog learns, oh, nice. If I don't pull towards all these things, treats, or maybe in your case, Anuj, the what you have on your backyard, the pieces of bark, or for a person on an Indian street, it could even be, some old piece of food that has been put on the side, or some paper plate. You can do it with anything, and you just have to make it into a memory, a practice for the dog, that when they stop trying to get it, they will get good things from the other way, right? And it's all about practicing before you take it to real-time situations. So these are the first 3 skills that we have to teach before we go into leash walking. Foundation. These things are taught indoors. So you can see a lot of the leash walking starts indoors even before you go out, right? Because if the dog doesn't know how to handle it in the absence of distractions, in the presence of distractions, you'll end up putting unnecessary pressure on the leash and doing so much, right? So that's your leash manners. This is what we call leash manners. Any question you have on that, Harshita? Because you had asked something. Did that answer you?
Yes, yes, Karthik.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, great. Fine. So, as I said, leash walking, we first start indoors. Those are the foundational exercises. Now, you've already done all of these. Your dog has already understood the collar and leash, they understand leash pressure, they've already done the tether exercise. So, now you're at a point where you can hold the leash of your dog and walk around the house, have them focus on you, and be a little relaxed. Now, what you start to do is you start doing these four exercises. For you guys who have joined this workshop, I'm going to be sending you personal videos for each of these four to show you how each of these things are done in a step by step way. But for the people watching, I'm going to try and explain it to the best of my ability, and we'll probably upload it at a later date. The first one is called a heel position. Do you guys know what a heel position is? Have you ever heard of this? Okay, so the heel position or the side position, or some people call it ready, is when the dog is standing alongside you, by your side, facing the same direction of you, which is the standard position when you're walking the dog, because the dog is next to you and has to walk. We call this the heel position. We have to teach our dog the heel position and make it very strong. So the way we do that, again, it's going to seem very simple when I explain it here, but it takes a little bit of practice. We keep a piece of food in our hand that the dog likes, and we gently guide them to come alongside us so that their nose or their head area or their ear is just right next to our heel or our knee line, right? So the dog's next to you, you both are facing the same direction, and I reward it. I give them the treat when they come to that position. Again, I bring the dog, I lure them using the piece of food to the position, and again give it to them. If I do this over and over and over again, I practice a couple of days, the dog will understand that if they come to that position, they get something good, right? And we call this the heel position. So at any point in the walk, if your dog's a little distracted, we'll just say, okay, buddy, let's get back to heel. And they come to your heel position. The heel position teaches the dog to come to your side. This is going to be the standard basic position, right, when you walk the dog. Not that you want the dog to walk right next to you the whole walk, because that can become frustrating. But you can let your dog sniff a little, provided they're on a loose leash, and bring them in whenever needed. So after you have taught your dog to be by your side, you start taking baby steps, which means I will hold the leash in my opposite hand. So let's say I want the dog to be on my left side. I will hold the leash on my right side. I will have a piece of treat on my left hand, hold it next to my dog so that they come to the heel position and start walking 1, 2, 3 steps. I say heel, I say 1, 2, 3, 3 steps, and I give them a treat. Then I walk 4 steps and I give them a treat. The dog starts learning to walk alongside me. You are never going to be holding treats and giving a dog through your walk. It's not possible to keep giving treats through your walk. But when you do this, a kind of association gets formed, right? You're teaching the dog's brain that coming to your side is rewarding, right? So you keep walking around, and slowly you don't give rewards every step. Randomly, you walk 2, 3 steps, you give a treat. You walk 2 steps, you give a treat. 5 steps, you give a treat. So now, and always we usually do it kind of like in straight lines, or we go around our dining table. And remember, all this is indoors, right? So just basic, you're teaching the dog to walk with you, next to you, and the leash is loose the entire time. Why is the leash loose? Anyone? Why is the leash loose?
So he can explore
Yes,
and
but how are we able to get a loose leash here?
retractable one.
No, here we are able to make the leash loose because the dog's attention is on the food.
Oh,
If
okay.
I wasn't holding that piece of food by my side to gradually keep the dog next to me, then they'll say, oh, there's a smell there. I want to go there. I can hear a sound there. And the pressure comes, right? So from the start, when we walk with the dog inside the house, we try to keep no pressure. We keep them by our side and we lure them. All right. Um, The
I have a question
tell me,
regarding this.
tell me.
Uh, Blue walks beside us, but
Yeah,
he's cross walking. So we have to watch our steps that we don't
absolutely.
hit him or hurt him somehow. So
Yes,
how can we make that correct?
very good. Point. Usually, this is fine tuning. Usually, what we say is when you first start off with the dog, especially when you're walking with something like a retractable leash, the dog will want to switch sides and explore. Right? The first thing to teach a dog is give them freedom and just teach them to come to you whenever needed. As they get comfortable and you switch to a regular leash when you're walking them, we say don't allow them to switch sides, as simple as that. Right? So you hold the leash a little shorter and you just prevent them, right? And then they will learn that you only stay on one side. But when you first start off with a puppy, if you try to be too strict in terms of you can't cross this side, you can't do, you'll have some stubborn puppies which will just get really annoyed and throw tantrums, right? And you'll become the bad guy in the equation, right? So it's important for especially dogs like that, you first give them freedom, make it a voluntary approach, and then you start teaching them to walk on one side, right? So for example, first we teach them the heel position, then we teach them walking few steps, then we teach them something called a stop and go, which means you walk 3 steps, you stop, you give a treat. You walk 5 steps, you stop, you give a treat. So the dog learns to walk with you on one side. So these exercises will also teach the dog to be on one side. If you practice always with your left, the dog gets into the habit of being on your left. If you do it on your right, they get into the habit of uh, rest, staying on your right. Okay, and the last fourth exercise, don't worry and break your head too much on these, because again these are just for you to know, right? After you have learned the basics, I'll anyway send you some videos of these as well for both of you, and you will get an idea, right? But for people watching, once you have done the leash manners first, these are the first exercises you practice indoors. So heel position, few steps and reward, then you got a stop and go where you walk, stop, walk, stop. So the dog learns to walk and stop alongside you. And number 4 is figure 8, which means we put 2 cones and we walk in an 8 shape around these cones, right? This teaches a dog to navigate turns, and it also teaches them to constantly be in sync with you, right? So again, not going to go too much into that, but these are the first exercises we teach for a dog before even going out. So can you imagine how we go about leash walking otherwise in general? We just put the leash on and we've taken the dog out, and the puppy has absolutely no idea what they're supposed to be doing, right? So this is a gradual, this is the textbook approach which will make sure that the dog understands to walk beautifully on a loose leash. All right, so all right, yeah, so the next step, as I said, is you take it to the next step, next level. You take it from your living room to a slightly outdoor space. It could be a backyard, it could be somewhere outside where you don't have distractions. Same thing, but concept remains the same. You see that lady in the bottom left, that's what she's practicing. That's called heel walking. See, now the dog is walking next to her, she's not even having a leash, right? But the dog is walking right next to her, and in the end the dog jumped because she gave a reward. She had a ball in the armpit and then she just released it because the dog walked nicely with her for those whatever 5 6 steps, right? So in the outdoors you practice the same thing you've done indoors after you've done it. So you do the stop and go game where you stop and move, stop and move. You do U-turns where you go straight and then you turn. And U-turns are also very useful when you have a dog that's pulling forward, right? When you walk in a straight line, they're like an aeroplane. It's like a runway and they just want to speed and they want to take off. They want to walk in front of you. So always when we start leash walking, we do a lot of turns. Like we walk in circular movements in a figure 8 shape, right? So when we start doing a lot of turns, the dog gets into the hang of walking with you and not charging up ahead. And varying pace. We'd always make it a habit. The puppy learns to walk when we're walking fast, walk very slow. So these are all simple exercises that we do when we are walking the dog outside. But remember, all of these exercises can only be done if the dog understands leash manners first and has practiced certain exercises indoors. Only then can you start doing it outside. One point I want to add here, a lot of us live in apartments or big urban communities, and we have a habit of taking our dog for a walk long distance. Like we said, chalo, we'll take the dog for a long round, which is so good. Exercise is great. But many people just go for the round without teaching the dog this, right? So they miss out an opportunity for the dog to learn how to be on leash, right? So always, when we first start our walk, you don't have to traverse long distances. You just have to choose one place, whether it's your backyard or just one place, and just practice leash walking there. And once you get comfortable with it, increase, and by the end of it, you'll be at a point where you can just walk anywhere. It'll be effortless. The leash will be loose all the time. Yeah, so from there you go to the yard. Yeah, sorry. Then you go to your neighborhood, right? So now you're going to start taking your dog in real time situations. You see distractions. What are distractions that a dog has on a walk? What do you guys think are the distractions?
The other smell of the dogs.
Other smell of dogs, absolutely.
Sorry, I think I missed your voice.
Sorry, yeah, other smell of the dog, absolutely. Anything else?
The leaves, the barks.
Leaves, barks, objects,
The
squirrels,
peas and poops.
pee and poop of other dogs themselves, people, right? So everything, we've got such a distracting environment for a dog to grow up in, right? So if you've already taught them leash pressure, first thing to remember is, I'm going to put the second point here, have your expectations very clear and understand that it's normal for a dog to be distracted. It's not a mistake, and it's okay. If you want them to have laser focus on you, that's going to be a very boring life, right? So it's okay for the dog to want to focus and explore different things. The main thing is the dog should be able to disengage with the distractions, right? So for that we do focus building. So what we do is we go there, the dog is looking at a squirrel, or let's say the dog's looking at something and they want to go there from a distance. What will they do? Their ears stand up and they're looking straight in the leash. Number one, I don't pull them immediately. I let them see it. I let them watch the distraction for some time. I say, oh, look at that. What is that? Oh, that's a squirrel. And then I use leash pressure gently. That's why the dog needs to know leash pressure before you do this. You put a little bit of leash pressure and tell the dog, come here, leave that. Dog will look at you, and when they come to you, you give them a treat or something they like. And then again, you show the dog and say, go look at the squirrel. By allowing them to look at that thing over and over again, they will lose interest in it. But if you pull them and say, no, no, don't go there, no, no, and you hold them tight, you hold their collar, you try to block them, the dog will only try harder to go for the distractions. So the trick is not to block them from the distraction, it's to tell them, go see it. But you know what? Every now and then come in, check in with me, and take this treat and go. Guaranteed, very quickly, the dog will say, I don't want that distraction, I'm just going to be with you. Alright, the other thing is habituation and desensitization, which means when I go for a walk, always, and I used to do this right from the time with my first dog, never knowing that it's going to be such a big benefit, you know. When you have a dog and you take them for a walk, always after you finish your dog, we say, finish the walk, you find a place that is relatively busy, but you can sit away from it. Sit away from there, hold the dog on leash and just relax, listen to music and just take it easy. Every day the dog is in constant movement on the walk, so the brain is always seeing different smell, different people. But if you stop in different places, it gives them a chance to take it in and just relax, right? So stop somewhere, just let the dog, hold the dog, don't say anything, let them relax, make sure no one is coming to pet your dog. Just relax, because very quickly the dog will learn that, okay, I can relax outside. They get habituated to the environment. This is very useful when you have a busy street, or you have a supermarket, or you're taking your dog to a pet friendly place. Just give them an opportunity to take it in, right? So that's a very important aspect of making your walks pleasurable. Yeah, apart from just the leash walking, you need to make the dog comfortable with each locality that you're walking them in, just by making them hang out there for longer durations. And finally, the third point is set them up for success. Don't try going to, I'm so sorry, don't try, don't try going to a place where it's very difficult for you to handle the dog, right? If you've just started off with a puppy, make it easy for you and your puppy. Choose a place with less distractions, choose a time with less distractions, and just build it up from there. Because if you can do that, then a week down the line, you'll be able to handle the higher level distractions. It's only about getting the right pattern of behavior going. All right. So, yeah, so that would be your neighborhood walk. Now, before I go into this final bit, any questions you guys have regarding this? No questions, I'm guessing. Okay, cool, fantastic. So, um, now that you've already done the walk, you've taught leash manners, you've started training, walking them indoors, you took it to your backyard and practiced the same exercises, and finally you did your neighborhood walks and you're feeling confident. Now, there are going to be few things that you see in some dogs which is a little out of textbook, right? Whether you have a dog that doesn't know leash walking, or a dog that's never been on leash, or the dog that pulls too much, this is the same protocol we need to follow, because unless you have the foundational skills, it becomes very difficult to do the other things. It becomes like trying to teach your dog calculus without learning basic of addition and subtraction, right? So the basic skills are important. But now you've done everything, but you still see certain things. Number one, my dog is excessively sniffing. You'll see this in certain breeds more, right? And certain personalities of dog. So if you see some breeds like hounds, like beagles and all of that, their nose is permanently on the ground because their sense of smell is just that strong and they are totally driven by it. This is not wrong, but at the same time, if your dog is excessively sniffing, number one, they may be a little stressed out in the environment. So the suggestion is to give a longer leash and spend more time over there so they can sniff and settle in. Give them a lot of sniffing time, extra sniffing time in your walks, right? Allocate sniffing times and sniffing spots, and it indicates a need for enrichment, right? The dog's brain is looking for more input, right? Sensory input. So playing games with them, some sniffing games, giving them a Kong, certain activities, puzzle games will be really useful for dogs like this. And again, maybe once a week you can take them for decompression walks in, good natural settings like a trek and things like that. That will be very beneficial. Second is zoomies. Just recently, I think Anuj had messaged me in the evening and he said Blue is just gone crazy. Like he's going everywhere, he's jumping on everything. So these are zoomies, and zoomies can happen even in the middle of a walk. Like that dog you see in the middle, that's a case of the zoomies. Like it'll start from nowhere, like 0 to 100 in a millisecond. Okay, and the reason dogs do zoomies is because they've either got overstimulated by some kind of a smell or something, and some feeling or sensation it could be. So many times puppies have a witching hour, we say. It's always late in the evening, when they just want to, they've been stimulated the whole day and they want to unwind. So they do this fast forward button and it looks like a zoomie, which is a crazy release of energy. This sometimes can happen on your walk, especially if you've got a hyperactive, high energy dog that's not got enough stimulation or has been overstimulated, and they're seeing too many distractions and you're not letting them go. It can involve them jumping, biting your leash, going crazy. For all of this, there are many techniques, but I don't want to go into that because you should be consulting a professional as well. At that time, calmness is key, just to keep in mind, because the more you try to stop it, the longer it's going to last, right? So the idea is just be totally calm, understand that you can't do anything. Just keep your valuables out of reach, keep your hands low to the ground, not high. The higher you keep it, dog sometimes try to jump and catch the leash. Just keep your hands low to the ground, just take a few breaths and just relax, right? And it'll pass. If you do this a few times, the dog will actually stop doing it so much. Many dogs learn to do it later on as a habit only because they got feedback from the parent. All right. And third is called reactivity. Leash reactivity is one of these issues. Is not It's called leash reactivity because it always happens on the leash. See, when the dog is on leash, they don't have natural expression that they would have off leash, right? So they can't move around or behave normally. So many dogs that have had bad experiences in the past develop this reactivity either out of fear or frustration. So either the dog is very afraid that something's going to happen to them, so they act out very aggressively, or the dog gets frustrated, right, on leash, really frustrated, and they start redirecting it either at the owner or start lunging and barking at the other dog. When you have something like reactivity, again, it becomes important to deal with it very carefully, because many dogs that are reactive are actually reactive only because of the pressure on the collar. Again, comes down to leash pressure being introduced in the wrong way. right? Many times when puppies or dogs are trained early using very harsh training techniques, and if the dog is a sensitive dog, a sensitive soul, sometimes they just kind of, it flips a switch because unnecessary they were feeling this, so they go into a defensive state, a fight flight, a survival mode. And many people say when my dog gets into that mode, they don't know what's happening, they're zoned out, right? So we have to handle it very carefully, rewind, teach the dog that they're feeling safe on leash, work on whatever it is, whether it's fear or frustration, and always consult a professional. So many times with a reactive dog, food is not going to work. You can't use food the way I just discussed. So it's about a repair that you do gradually, changing the tool and working in specific ways. So I'm not going to go into that. We'll definitely have a reactivity workshop completely
Yes,
going ahead.
for reactivity, it did not work out for Labby.
Yes.
The treat did
Won't
not work
work.
at that time.
When you have reactivity, it's not even actually leash walking problem, to tell you the truth. It's a whole different issue, right? Because the way you work with a dog that's pulling on the leash is very different from how you'll work with a dog that's actually got reactivity, because you're not even, it's not really the leash. The leash is one aspect of it, but there are so many other things to address with reactivity, right? So it's another game altogether. So we will do a workshop on this sometime in the future. So yeah, that is your reactivity. All right. So just to sum it up, I know I may have got a little ahead of time. Are we? Yeah. So a little bit ahead of time, but just to sum up the session, there are just three things for you to keep in mind, right? The right tools, the right mindset, and the right techniques. If you've got a check on these three things, you're going to get better and better. And it doesn't matter if your dog's not walking nicely with you on the leash today, you will eventually get there. If not in a week, you'll get there in a month. If not in a month, you'll get there in 2 months, right? But the trick is just to enjoy the process. Don't make leash walking seem like a chore. Everyone says, I have to take my dog for a walk, right? Very few people say, I'm going for a walk with my dog. Sometimes people say, my dog wants to take me for a walk. That's another thing altogether. So make the walk a pleasurable experience for you. Learn to enjoy it with your dog. Put in the time and effort. All these exercises are based in reward based techniques. So you make it fun and engaging with your dog, and eventually the walk can be the most therapeutic thing between you and your dog. I started my profession as a dog walker, and till date, nothing gives me more gratification than actually taking a dog for a walk. And today we do these treks in nature, we do these nature walks on every Sunday. We take dogs from the city and their owners into nature on a nice trail, and it's really good. It's the best feeling ever. It's so therapeutic for the dog and the parent, right? So
Karthik, I wanted to know one thing.
yes,
So I wanted to take Millie for a first time nature walk.
yes, yes.
So when should I start, and where can I take her in Bangalore
So
first time?
being in a city, a place like Bangalore, I think people abroad have a lot of options. In Bangalore, it's fairly limited, and you have to be careful because if you're going into a open environment, there are many things to consider. So unless you know a safe place like a resort or some pet-friendly location, I wouldn't advise you just go straight up into it. That's why we organize it. So we have some curated places that we have curated, and I go with them. I take one of my dogs as well, because you need someone with the knowledge of the trail. You need someone who knows what's going to happen there. So sometimes there are village dogs, there are other things. So you need someone who's aware of the locality, especially if you're venturing further away. Or otherwise, the another way to just provide for these kind of things is go to a pet friendly resort, go for a weekend there, because there you'll have familiar places you can walk. But otherwise, you can definitely join us. Please feel free to contact us after this. We'll share all the details with you. We do it on a regular basis every Sunday, and it's something that is very therapeutic for both the dog and the pet parent, right? So yeah, that's the summary. And finally, just something to keep in mind: the walk is a conversation, not a competition. Many times where you see people being dragged by the dog and them resisting and holding the dog back, it becomes a tug of war game, right? So all you need to do is keep in mind these three things: the tool, correct selection of the tool, the right techniques, and the right mindset, and go in the same way that I said, and leash walking should become a lot easier. and do not hesitate to consult a professional if you ever need practical help on this, right? Because this is one of those topics where it will help for someone to demonstrate. Yeah, so with that, I think we've finished today's workshop. Went a little ahead of time, but that's fine. So we'll open it up to questions, so feel free to ask anything. Anything that you are facing now, anything you think you may face, or any goal you want to achieve with your dog, or any specific about any specific tool or whatever it is.
I think Karthik, we are good. We will drop off too
Yeah, it's
because of
really
the
late for
Blues
you guys.
time schedule.
It's really late for you guys. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for joining.
for sleeping.
Good.
But
Hi. Oh, hi, Blue. Hi, thank you so much for
Just woke
attending.
up from a nap.
yeah,
Chalo.
Good
You
day.
guys rest. Thank you so much for joining in, and I'll see you
absolutely.
guys soon.
Oh, see you. Bye
Thank you.
bye. Thank you.